Looking back at your past relationships, how have you been a shitty boyfriend? I was reminiscing about past romantic playthroughs, as I usually do because playing IRL in single-player mode tends to keep you stuck on certain levels, and realized I was a pretty shitty-ass boyfriend to the one that got away. What's worse is that I actually thought I was a good boyfriend because we just almost never fought about anything, so I took that as indicative of a healthy relationship. She was, however, one of the most patient angels I was unaware of having met. One of the more memorable moments I'm hung up on that I look back on in disgust is this one time where she was driving to my house and her car broke down in the middle of the street late at night by the 7-Eleven that was a 5-minute walk from my house, or a 2-minute drive from my house. She called me with concern in her voice, almost trembling, saying she needed help pushing her car off the street. I told her to put it in neutral and push it to the side, then to call a tow truck or something. I'm so ashamed to say that she complied with what I said in the sweetest and most understanding okay I've ever heard. The reason I didn't want to go and help was because I was fucking playing ranked Gears of War. Can you believe that shit? What's worse, is that I justified my decision by telling myself that she's a grown woman and should be able to handle it herself. Man, if I could go back and kick my ass. Luckily some stranger was kind enough to help her get it off the street. She then proceeded to wait for both her dad and the tow truck all while she was texting me at home. 2 minutes away. I've reflected and grown as a person since then, but man, I still can't believe how shitty that was of me. One of the things she told me after we broke up was that dating me felt more like being a mother than being a girlfriend, and I dwell on that a lot. Fearnit. Not opening up enough, saying I love you, or being emotionally 100% in. I've been in 3 or 4 relationships up to 1 year in length, but I've never been in love, although they have. I've always been a good boyfriend, but I've never been able to give all that I want to give and fully commit. I always thought about buying just because flowers on my way to their apt but never did, because it felt too serious. I always wanted to say I love you but I never felt like it was 100% genuine. Or maybe I just wasn't ready for the implications, i.e. that this is now a very serious relationship and we now have to get married or go through a devastating breakup. I don't know. I don't think I have a good understanding of what being in love truly means. I'm starting therapy next week to try to figure out how I can get over this hump and be the boyfriend, or husband, I want to be. For most of my early relationships, I was at my worst when I realized that the relationship was going to end. When I sensed that one or both of us had fallen out of love or was no longer invested in the relationship, instead of just breaking up like I should, I started doing shitty things. Like with one woman who cheated on me, I started going through her phone while she was asleep. I realize now that if my trust issues were that bad, I should have just left. With someone else, I could tell that she had lost interest and was looking for the right time to break up with me, so I did things that made it harder for her to leave. Like making serious, expensive plans with her months in advance. I should have just let her go. And at least once, when I knew I was no longer in love and wanted to leave, I stayed just because the sex was good. I still feel really bad about that because I was basically just using her for sex and I think she knew and just let it happen because she didn't want me to leave. I was only a shitty boyfriend during my first relationship. Also my longest one. Also my best one. See, my ex and I met the summer between junior and senior year. She was an exchange student. We met at the county fair. She was from Italy and I'm being Italian-American gave us something to talk about. Didn't take the 17-year-old us very long to fall in love. It was the kind of sweet, innocent, I just want to make you happy, kind of love. School let out and she had to go back. But we didn't want to break up. So we decided I would go with her. I ended up in Italy, winning over the heart of her father immediately, and a sense of undeserved, unprovoked hatred from her mother. Her father lined me up with a decent job although it was factory work. And I paid them rent, to cover any expenses incurred by my presence and a gesture of goodwill toward her mother who I thought mere kindness would work. My efforts were in vain. By New Year's her mother had demanded that I leave. We cried it out together but laughed too. The Italian embassy gave me a right of blood citizenship and we had already gotten a K1 visa applied for. I went back to my hometown, landed another factory job, saved up, and she flew in about a month after I shipped out to college. Things were good at first. But somehow I lost sight of just being kind to her and loving toward her, or appreciating her sense for adventure. Instead I started seeing her as a liability. Because though her visa was approved and she was good to stay, she couldn't work or study yet and the bureaus were taking forever. And she would become frustrated and take it out on me. What the fuck more can I do for you? I'm already working 40 hours a week and taking 20 hours of classes. And I come home just to get yelled at? But she wasn't yelling, just venting. She wanted to do everything just like me. And me being 19 and underdeveloped to withstand pressure. I flipped shit over everything. She saw me cracking under the pressure and still tried to get me to be positive. She still loved me with all of her heart. I chalked her positivity up to stupidity because the pressure had turned me bitter. Eventually some small improvements, she could work and study and so she did. We began very aware of the problems in our relationship and began to work on them. But now the pressure was on her too. Her mother saw this as the perfect time to get rid of me. Told her that there was no light at the end of the tunnel and that work and school would be everything it would ever be. Beginning to grow kinder again, and if even by a smidge, I tried. But I couldn't get through to her. I couldn't love her enough or be kind enough to her to get past the gloomy words of her mother echoing through her head. I tried and tried. Just like she did before. But my efforts failed. One day she told me she was going back. I was confused. I had conceded to every demand of hers, changed myself. I told her that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. We'll both one day be done with school and out of this factory. And then be free to live and love together. It's not enough. The damage is done, she said. I begged her to reconsider. To realize she was making a permanent decision based on problems of the past, and situations that will pass and that I'm already becoming better to her. My efforts were in vain. She left. And I was fucking heartbroken. Although I was a toxic dickhead and ignored her needs, snubbed her efforts, and completely lost appreciation for her, and I admit it. The pain of losing her set off a series of decisions, adventures, and transformation that turned me 180 degrees for the better. I am wiser for what I've done. She would be welcome back with open arms today. And if not her but another, the experiences have made me better. I will not hurt the next girl who loves me. If another one ever does. Sometimes I think that the shitty experiences I've had in dating since then are a form of karmic penance for me to pay for breaking her heart because she was so good. That somehow the only way for me to make it right is by resigning to be alone.